Hey, what's up? I am going to go over some of my Sumatra footage, what surfing really looks like Sumatra. This is a 2 or 3 part series. There is actually a lot of footage. I did a lot of filming. I was actually ended up being sick the whole time, so you'll see some footage of that. Last 2 weeks of March 2025, that's shoulder season in Sumatra, which means that the full-on swells haven't come yet. The wind can be a little tricky, which I learned. And yeah, it was my first time in Indonesia, and I hope that you enjoy some of this footage. I'm gonna start here with just how I got there. Left from JFK in New York. I live in New York, live in Rockaway Beach, and split time in Manhattan. Flew on Emirates. Huge Airbus 380, never been on one of these things. I flew economy class. Apparently, business is probably the call. Tip, if they offer you an upgrade, you're flying from the States all the way to Indonesia and you fly Emirates and they offer you an upgrade for $500, take it, because it's a really long flight. The extra space is nice. And if you don't take that online discounted upgrade, after that you pretty much can't get it. And I think I checked like on the return flight home, upgrades were up to like $15,000. Okay, so I recommend it, you know, and find a nice fare. We transferred in Dubai and then flew to Jakarta, and then from there flew to Sumatra. Emirates was a cool experience. They have these flight cams, which you'll see. I'm gonna, have a little video right here of the stuff that I'm describing. So yeah, they have these flight cams, and they have cameras mounted all on the airplane. So that was pretty cool. I've never been to the Middle East at all, and it's not like I was there, but I did land in Dubai, and you can see some of this footage of like flying into Dubai and seeing what the landscape looks like. And that was just new for me. I still haven't technically like been anywhere over there, but even the landscape was just in my imagination until I flew over it. So that's pretty cool. That was about let's say it's like a 12-hour flight. That part was 12 hours. And then the flight from Dubai to Jakarta is another 8. And we had the layover. It's a long way to go. I watched some good movies. Then we stayed overnight at a hotel near the airport in Jakarta. Next morning, went to the airport again, domestic flight to Sumatra. That took like 45 minutes. And it is, there are a lot of surfers flying in. There were a bunch of guys that came off our flight, and you can see this footage here is funny. Like, you never seen so many board bags coming off of airplanes. Another little tip, they're really used to surfboards in and out of Indonesia. I wouldn't freak out about extra fees or anything. Don't pay extra equipment fees if you don't have to. Just say it's your bag allowance and go with it. Try to pack light. I have a bunch of videos about how to pack your boards and check those. Honestly, you just need your board shorts and some towels and some extra board bags, but don't go nuts. Don't make your bag too heavy. Okay. And then the driver came, so we were staying at Amy's place in Sumatra. I did not know a ton about Southwest Sumatra. There is a funny little story why I picked this place for another time, or maybe it will come out in the course of what I'm talking about here. But yeah, stayed at Amy's place. There are a bunch of places in this area called Krui, which has a ton of waves. Amy organizes everything. You pay for the transfers, and our driver came, and he had some less than ideal rack setup on his car. So see a little video of that. It was my clients Carlos and Bryce and me, and it was supposed to be my other client Ben, but he had some personal stuff, had to pull out of the trip. And loaded the board bags up, and we're going. First time, it looked a lot like a lot of other places in the world that are humid and jungly with, cute little houses and things like that, except for the rice fields were new to me. And yeah, the roads from the airport to like the main road to get to Krui were really bad and really slow. I thought it was going to be that way the whole time, and thankfully it wasn't. Then we got into like a larger town and everybody drives scooters, so there's some footage of that. And once we get past that, it starts raining because in shoulder season, it's still wet season, and Bryce got absolutely soaked. So there's some funny footage, you know, because the guy had strapped the boards through the car, and whenever you use straps that go all the way through the car, if it rains, the water gets in the straps and, you know, is going to precipitate inside the car. And for whatever reason, Bryce got the brunt of that. Then we got to Amy's. Me and Carlos took the wax off of our boards. I brought a 5.4, a 5.9, and 2 5.4s. I brought a fish, I brought a shortboard, and I brought a step up. And Carlos brought a fish, a little bit of a step up, and he brought this other like funky little album disky thing that he didn't end up surfing that much. Bryce brought a 7.0 fun board. He brought a fish, and he brought his 6.4 Barahona Canadas shortboard. So the winds were just bad at Amy's, and it was northwest. There are a few places around there that you'll see in the video that are protected from the northwest wind, but the best place is a place called Jenny's that's way up the way. So if you look here on the map, I have this map right here. You see here is where Amy's place is, and then there's this beach break below, Mandiri beach break, and up the way there's Krui left. They were like okay with the wind, but not that great. You're gonna see footage of both of these spots, and another little one called Lintic, which is not on the map. And then up is Jenny's, and it faces south. So that is just primarily the place that we surfed, and the primary footage that you're going to see in these videos is surfing Jenny's. It's a right reef break, and I will have a lot to say about that spot when we get to that part of the footage. So this was just the intro, and basically explains like how we got there. And once we got to Amy's, then we started doing the surfing. So check out this part. First day at Jenny's. This guy was absolutely shredding. English fellow in his 30s, ripping goofy foot. Let's look at his form here. Opens those shoulders up to the lip, following through with the lower body. Gets that fin release there. He has that very elegant knock-kneed style. Really sits into his bottom turn, swings the front arms, and has the requisite follow through. It's the only wave I filmed this guy surfing, but I would have loved to watch him surf a bit more. Very perfect backside form. But you can't pull them all. Can't pull all the turns. First one was really nice. Here's Bryce walking out. This is a mid to higher tide. So you got to paddle, and then you walk a little on this reef, and then you just jump over the back. Here's Carlos on the paddle part where you go down from the Warung and just paddle over the deeper part of the reef while the tide is still a little higher. Then when you get to the shallower part of the reef, you walk, and it's not super sharp coral, actually, not deadly razor sharp. There's Bryce, he's done the jump, and that's pretty much it. So the paddle out at this place is fairly straightforward, actually at all tides. You'll see in parts 2 and 3 of the Sumatra series that we got much bigger surf later in the trip. What you're seeing here are small to medium wave days. This wave is offshore in northwest winds, and we had northwest winds most of the trip. So there's Carlos. He's out the back with the fishing boat. Loves his sun protection. Bryce on a deep one. Bryce is riding a 7.0. Really good quiver decision for him. Doesn't get into that one. I want to watch this in slow-mo for those what surfing really looks like fans. Bryce could have gone deeper. He's committed to his paddle right here, and his head is down, but what he's missing is that over to his left, as I pan out, you can see if he would have just moved up towards the peak rather than paddling hard on the shoulder, he would have gotten into that wave. And that's something that a lot of people miss in their intermediate and beginning surfing. Now he's deeper. He has a nice pop and glide to his surfing and just came over that front foot a little bit too much. Guy on a wave behind him. And he can turn a little better than Bryce, but his style is not that great. So Bryce is up. Watch what happens here. Nice compression to extension for that pump. Then right here, he goes up high and comes over that front foot, just leans over the front foot a little bit much. If he would have stayed over his back foot, he would have pulled that little maneuver. Now let's look at this guy's approach. He's not carrying speed very well. This turn is okay, but his flow is a little lacking. Now Carlos is out the back, and you can see how this wave breaks. There's a kind of deep section, and then there is this more proper section. That's the peak proper. Bryce, again, all he needed to do was just go a little bit deeper, or as this guy shows, be a little bit more inside. And wave coming underneath it. So we're going to watch this one again. Bryce his head is down and not seeing that he could have just moved over a little deeper and got right under that lip. Now let's look at this guy surfing. Very slow, clunky pop-up. And he has what we call a poop stance. He sticks his butt out and his knees go the opposite direction from one another. That is a form that you want to avoid if you can avoid it. This is not a great wave. You can see the lip line of this wave, very funky. This wave at Jenny's is very fun, but it's weird until it gets big. It's very split up. Okay, here goes Carlos. Carlos trying out the deep peak on his first session that I filmed. And just goes down. Let's see what goes wrong here. He's too angled at this takeoff. Gets hung up in the lip here. His head is down, and he's just trying to stand up as he's hung up, and that means his fins don't catch and he cannot continue. Bryce again looking but deciding he wasn't deep enough. And then we have a female surf instructor burning a boogie boarder. That is what surfing really looks like. I'm sure we've all seen it all the time. This guy paddling hard on the shoulder, not catching the wave. One rolling in from deep, not getting in, and that guy's stoked. That thing was just sectiony. Ultimately, that wave was a closeout. Here's the crowd. It was not uncrowded in Sumatra. We certainly had a few sessions, but this place is on the map. This is shoulder season, as I mentioned in the intro. Not the best time of year to be in Sumatra, but as you can see, there are waves, and a lot of people would love to go and cruise on a little wave like this. This is an older gentleman surfer. I kind of like his slow, measured approach. Carlos now struggling with wave judgment in this first session. And as we look at this, I'll mention other things about Carlos and Bryce. Here's Bryce. He has that frantic takeoff and didn't want to run over Carlos there. We've been working on getting that, out of his surfing. This Japanese woman, I'm now forgetting her name, was kind of the dominant surfer in this little session. Love her style, economy of movement. Let's watch her approach. Gentle paddles in. She's at the peak on that deep peak. Feet just come up underneath her. One fluid motion. Not trying to do too much. Leaning into it. Little check turn there. Opens the arms. I love her casual body language. Crouches down with the butt first. She has the nice knock knee style. Here's a larger set for this day. This fella's going over to the shoulder and wave sectioned out on him. Although I think he maybe could have made that, but isn't that what surfing really looks like? See a good one, you want to go, nobody gets it. Okay, here goes the German surf instructor for Surf with Amigos, Lulu. Little check off the top. Bryce, little check off the top for him. That was smooth. Not much more on that wave. Our Japanese shredder woman going from deep, maintaining her speed, casual body language, and can't do that cutback. Next little inside wave. Anybody going? Any takers? This guy's looking for it. He has one of those asymmetrical pop-ups where the hands are skewed. Let's watch her again. I think she's very good to watch. Nice, smooth, one-stage pop-up. Notice how springy her legs are and how her butt points in the right direction. Her back knee is knocked under the rest of her body. I love that casual, tall approach, but she just didn't engage the back foot enough there. Happens to the best of us. Probably got a little bit lazy, to be honest with you. Just lack of vigilance. Okay, let's check out this guy. So you see his hands. That's legit. Some people have that asymmetrical hand placement when they stand up. He's a bit aggressive, which some people are aiming for. For me, I would rather watch that Japanese woman surf all day long. Decent turn, knocks his knee under, but probably pushing a little too hard for what this wave has on offer. Carlos, he's a little too forward on the board, as you can notice. He forced a pearl there. Carlos also has asymmetrical arms when he stands up. You'll see his front hand is further up than his backhand, and he's already just too far forward on this board. And he goes even more forward so that when he goes down, the nose just goes under. It was a good wave, so good job for Carlos finding that one. That was the right idea there. Bryce stuck behind the section. And that's Lulu on the shoulder. Set wave, everybody's out of position. And yeah, that is what surfing really looks like. Best wave of the day that I filmed so far. Nobody's on it. Ocean won. Everybody else, well, half a point, right? At least the Japanese surfer woman is getting some sick ones. That was a nice little turn. She really found those deep ones that stayed open. Her wave judgment was excellent. I wouldn't dive head first in shallow reef, though. PSA. Let's watch her again. See how high she gets her chest up before she brings those legs underneath her. Staying mid-line so she can hold her speed, goes down to the bottom, just pushes a little, not too hard. Now she's over the fins, and because she was able to keep her back foot over her fins there, she didn't fall on these turns like she did on the turn prior. She seemed to be in some kind of rhythm with the guy on the checkered board, the guy whose style I mentioned was pretty aggressive, because in the previous one, he was behind her, and here he is again behind her. Little fang there. And he has a bit of a counter rotation of the upper body and lower body. He can surf. It's just not the prettiest thing you've ever seen. Bryce had a little trouble finding the open waves. Bryce has a nice flowing style. And up and through the lip there. Sometimes you just got to eject. Apparently there are plenty of fish in Sumatra. Check out that feeding frenzy. Saw some big ones when I was sitting in the lineup at this spot. Carlos trying to find that deep peak, just a little too deep there. Bryce's style has really chilled out since we've been working together. He used to try to force things a lot. Now he works more on foot movement. I like that little pop over off the top there. Oh, somebody going deep and not able to get in. Here's the Surf with Amigos instructor again. She's a little too over her front foot, I'd say. Nice wave coming. And, you know, this is vacation surfing. Mix of levels out there. Everybody is a standard level, can stand up on the waves. Here goes Bryce. But various sorts of styles and competencies once up and riding. Now Bryce has got into the rhythm here. Almost a little pocket ride right here. And I would have loved to see Bryce hit that end section. That's our next thing we want to work on. What I love about him riding this 7.0 is how easy he gets into this wave. Everybody's on these shorter boards, but since we work on style and smoothness, sometimes it's just better to be on a little bit larger equipment. We can imagine, however, Bryce being able to utilize more of the tail of this surfboard. He's a little over the front foot most of the time, but his crouching is really nice. He's able to go down with that butt first, and he's just cruising midline on this wave. I think he could have hit that section. Again, he needs to work on getting over that back foot, lifting the nose up, and slamming the door shut on these waves. I filmed her board because it flowed so nice, so I just wanted to get an up close of like what this surfboard looked like. It was a twin fin with it was a twin fin with like a little guitar pick at the bottom. Afternoon session, tide's a lot lower. Another tourist surfer. Carlos going for one and missing. So there's that. He just didn't paddle enough. Good wave judgment, though, because that thing looked fun. Look at that little inside wave. You can see the reef starting to get exposed on the inside. There's a little mini tube there to be had. Now let's check out the surfer behind him. Because I think, I'm not saying this to make fun of people just to make fun of people. That's not even what I'm doing. I want to technically analyze these average everyday surfers so that if you're one of these surfers, you can see how video review and analyzing your form can help you. He makes a nice drop. His front arm is blocking him off. His arms are actually just really all over the place. So he's trying to surf a little bit too much with that upper body. You can see he's too over the front foot and like putting his head in the lip rather than surfing with his legs. The honest truth, too, is that wave was a closeout. So sometimes you just have to be humble in the face of what the wave is offering you. Carlos, now he's in. Little check turn, smoothing things out. Inside wave. Carlos gets a little anxious and wants to stay busy, and that sometimes compromises his wave judgment. Bryce, there's his little pump, two of them. And then here, over the front foot, a little bit much. I like Bryce's takeoff here, though. This shows exactly what we've been working on, slowing it down, being less frantic. 1, 2, legs are over the tail. 1 stage pop-up, engages the rail, hands in the wave. That's really nice work by Bryce. And I love this little pop flow line that he's developed. Gonna do another one. Just highlining. And again, because I am critical, Bryce is a little too over that front foot. And we're gonna see it here. He reaches back, but he's leaning over the front foot to pivot, and he's never gonna be able to turn that board back towards the whitewater if he doesn't push down on the tail. Here goes Carlos. Oof, hung up. I'm going to show this one in slow motion just because I think a lot of people can relate to this. Carlos a little too angled on this one and hung up in the lip again. Just needed one more paddle. Also, wave wasn't that good, and he sees it right here and just love the body language there. We all know how that feels. Like, you're kind of mad at the wave and yourself at the same time. Definitely feel that. Bryce, oh, just too late. And too deep. Bryce, not too late, not too deep. But what went wrong? That was, on the face of it, a good wave. What goes wrong here? It's really that his head is looking down. If he would have kept his head higher up and he could have angled that takeoff a little more, I think he could have got a little tube ride right there, which is definitely next for Bryce's surfing. But sometimes on a steeper wave, people get hung up looking down instead of up at the lip line. You want to keep your eyes up so you can scoot under that little lip. If he would have even had that approach right there, he might have got under that wave. Nice cutting back turn all the way to the whitewater for Bryce. You can see, though, he does veer towards leaning over that front foot. And that's something that you want to catch early in your surfing. Nice pop up again. Stays mid face here. And this time he is able to push a little harder with that back foot, which is what allows him to cut back to the whitewater. Here you can see how he is over that front foot, right? He's going to go into this turn and again try to pivot around the front foot, and it just does not work because that part of the board is very unforgiving. You know, you really need to be pressing on the tail to carry a turn all the way through. This was a dad from Western Australia. He gets a little head dip here, and obviously a super decent surfer once he's up and riding. But I want you to look at this. He has an interesting pop-up, unique and unlike anybody else in the lineup. Carlos actually went for this wave on the shoulder and fortunately gave up and didn't get in because he was not in the right spot. Watch this guy's pop-up. He does one of these that they teach in surf schools where the back foot, like, he kind of crawls up. It is working enough for him, and he is a pretty good surfer once he's up and riding. He has nice style, very big man. I mean, that he can stuff himself into that little tube at his size is quite incredible. When I see people like this, though, like, I just want to help them with their diet and fitness because I can't even imagine how good this guy would surf if he could get rid of that gut and also actually change that pop-up. I think this guy is athletic enough that he could get up in one fluid stance. That was probably something that he was probably self-taught as a kid and just kept that clunky pop-up throughout his surfing. Here he goes again, and you see it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Believe it or not, he broke his board right there. So just, you see he has like this 1, 2, 3, 4 stage pop-up, which it does look that like part of the problem is his belly getting over it. And when he pulls through right here, the board doesn't come through, and you can see it go up in the lip right there. Boom, and the board just broke in half. This was his tour guide. A lot of us were all staying down in Krui and driving up to this wave for the day. Indonesian guide, it's a soft helmet. Noticed a lot of soft helmets. And here's a local fisherman, and you can really see the reef here. There's an interesting kind of sea moss on it, and honestly, for my 2 cents, the sea moss was like more uncomfortable and annoying and weird feeling than the reef itself. It's kind of, like scratchy. Here goes the Indonesian guide again. Oh, I think he could have made that section. That's an interesting thing too, when you think it's going to close out, but you actually had it. This guy had pretty good wave judgment and was on some of the sicker waves. Look at that one. And at this spot, even on these smaller days, some waves stayed open and some waves did not. Carlos finding his flow, finding some groove here. Carlos too, like Bryce and most intermediate surfers, just a little too heavy on that front foot. But you can see those moments when he slows down just enough. That's when his speed picks up. Isn't that weird? You know, when he pauses, he goes faster. All right, so done with Jenny's for this tape. Now we're at the beach break. This beach break is called Mandiri, and it's side offshore on those same northwest winds. These are, I'm going to warn you, some struggle bus sessions. This beach break gets really firing. If you want to follow it on Instagram, go check out Mandiri Beach Club. They've been getting some pumping surf now that what it is, May. I think May is probably a little better than late March when we were there. Or we just didn't score. There's a funky backwash in it. You can see Carlos just struggling to find these peaks, looking around, hunting. I actually paddled out earlier on this session and rode Bryce's 7.0. Really great board. Nature Shapes, local shaper in New York, out on Long Island. And caught a lot of fun waves, but it was hard and it is powerful. And that was a good one for Carlos to look at, but at the end of the day, not that good of a wave. You're going to see this a lot out of Carlos on the beach break. Again, this leaning too much on the front foot, not trusting your back foot enough, thinking that you need all this pressure forward to get down the line, causes him to pearl right here. And that's something that, he and I are continuing to work on and why we get video. He's riding a 5'8" Charles Mansell fish. Current was pretty strong. Now he's been sucked down the beach to this far peak, but I did see some pretty sick lefts down there. They at least look sick from the beach. Let's check out this one. There you go. That was a decent wave. Little tube pocket right there with a nice turn section. The filmer always gets the best waves because you don't have to be out there in the water looking for them. It's a spectacular wipeout by Carlos. Hung up in the lip again. Let's watch this one in slow-mo. Sometimes we do have to laugh at ourselves and enjoy these moments in surfing when, you just can't buy a wave. I think one more paddle, however, if he would have just gotten down and not hung up in the lip, he could have been right in that little curl right there. Probably just would have been a closeout pocket ride, but look at that wave flare open right there. Got to keep that head up and extra paddle. Get in under the lip. Hook that arm in and can potentially get an even better ride, but nice wipeout, as the case may be. Carlos is a kind of surfer where when I'm in the water with him, he catches a lot more waves. This trip, we struggled finding filmers who were good enough to film us all surfing at the same time, so I did a lot of filming. Now, I put this guy in here because this is a serious PSA. If you have a friend who's new to surfing, do not take him to a 4 to 5 foot beach break and give him a shortboard and allow him to... I was honestly super worried for this guy. You can see his legs are wide over the tail. He's balancing okay, but he clearly doesn't even know how to paddle. There's his friends out the back, not even paying attention to him. So guys, also this board was a thruster, and they only had 2 fins in it on the bottom, and it wasn't the twin fin side. It was the center fin and one of the side fins. So if you have a friend who you know is a beginner and the waves are a little bit heavy, don't let him try to paddle out on his own and almost, potentially drown so other people have to save him. He's not drowning here, but I just needed to show you guys what really poor paddling form looks like. And I honestly get scared for people who clearly have not had any training paddling a surfboard going out in relatively heavy surf. Okay, here's Bryce the next morning at Mandiri. Wind is a lot calmer. You can see the fin set up on his board there, 2+1. Actually identified when I rode that board, his back fin was too far up in the box and the board was like squirting out. So advised Bryce to put the fin further back. When you put the fin further back, you get more hold in a 2+1. And here I am filming little right. Waves looked really fun from the beach, but when you got out in the water, you see that little backwash. It was way harder, and you're going to see this is another difficult session. I've taught both Bryce and Carlos how to duck dive, and they can both duck dive pretty big boards and have very nice form over the tail. Nice calm paddling through the inside by Bryce here. Let's check his duck dive. Prepares right before the whitewater, lower body over the tail, pushes that tail under, gets a little release, and pops up out the back. And here's Carlos's paddle out. I'm not going to slow-mo his duck dives, but you can see he has that lower body control over the tail. And when Carlos and I started working together, this was not in his repertoire. Okay, here goes Bryce, not looking down the line. He could have got into there. He would never have made it out, but let's look at his head. Follow his eyes. Right here, he's not looking at all where he's going. So see how his head is down here? And he's just blind, right? You have to look, especially on these steeper waves, so you can get the right angle. He could have been up in a pig dog getting tubed. He would have never made it out, but he definitely could have got in if he was looking. Another one, not looking again. Worst wave. But for all you out there that want to learn to get tubed, if you're going to get tubed, you have to look at where you're going and how you're going to squeeze your body under that lip. You have to get onto your feet and get the rail engaged and keep your eyes up, one of your hands on the wall, so that the wave does not take you by surprise. That was a far worse wave, and if Bryce was really looking, he would have seen that he probably just didn't want to go on that one. Another right down the beach I filmed. That one looks fun. Little cutback section right there. What kind of roundhouse are you going to do on that wave? Bryce just getting desperate to get on any kind of face. And here again, this is a frontside version. He's looking down. If he would have just been looking up at that lip line and even adjusted his angle a little bit, he could have been on that green wall, and there wouldn't have been much to this wave because of the left wedge coming the other way, which actually looks like a super fun wave. All right, here goes Carlos. Carlos had a rough session, a little in and out here. On that front foot, a little bit heavy again, but I do love his ejection. Nice ejection right there. Set wave. That was a nice right, but you can see that bounce, and that bounce made this wave very, very difficult. I've heard it doesn't always have the bounce. There's a left. Get a little pocket ride. That was a nice fun wave until it got all foamy right there. They were out there, very easy to see from the shore. Very hard once you're out in the water, and that seems to happen a lot. You know, you're checking the surf, and you're like, oh, look at that one. That one's so sick. That one is actually a closeout. You go in the water, and it just all looks like closeouts, or you just can't buy one. All right, here goes Carlos. That was a better wave judgment for him. Continuing on the theme of just too much front foot. It's very counterintuitive. But watch Carlos here. Nice positioning. He's right on the peak. And if right here he could have leaned back and not forward, he would have stuck it. And then a little pump, and boom, you can imagine bashing that section. Hopefully he didn't hit the guy on the inside, though. Now he made the drop. Wave's not that good, but he's up. Gets that chest up high. Hands pulled a little further back. Still a little over the front foot, and the wave is a closeout, but, you know, it's small wins when you're doing this advancing in that advanced beginner intermediate zone and you're surfing. Little wins are big. Bryce, at least he got to his feet. Wave wasn't very good. He's still not looking enough, and this happens to Bryce when he's a little intimidated by the conditions. When it's dumpy and lumpy like this. Wow, that one just spit, but that one wasn't a makeable barrel either. Here's a woman surfer, and this was a spectacular wipeout. She wasn't looking enough, couldn't get into the wave enough, and boom, over the falls for her. That is what surfing really looks like. That was a pretty good wave, actually. If she could have gotten into that earlier, that wave stayed open. That was a tube. This was our guide at Amy's, Jaya, Western Australian. Or no, sorry, he's from the Sunshine Coast and works in the mines in Western Australia. Solid surfer. I think he likes larger waves. And there's just the guys out there. And a note to anybody who films surfing at all. Notice how I'm just filming them at parts in their session when, you know, they're not doing anything. That's so that I can get these takeoffs. Too many of you filmers out there are missing takeoffs. And if you want to get better at surfing, you need to be able to see what's going wrong right here. Bryce is looking down. He's holding onto his rails. He needed to paddle harder and just pop up into that tube section. That was great wave judgment. Just too tentative on the takeoff. Again, some filming tips. You know, you have to film before the surfer starts paddling for the wave if you're going to get the takeoff. I get so many clips from people around the world, and the filmer did not film any of their takeoffs. So we really can't see what's going on in their surfing if we don't see the takeoff. Most surfing issues can be fixed or need to be fixed at the takeoff first. People are focusing on what's going on in the turn, etc., but inevitably it's mostly due to wave judgment and paddling and takeoff positioning and form that is the issue. So filmers out there, you got to film these takeoffs. Here goes Carlos, breaks the lip line, chest is up higher here, gets to his feet. He's still a little hung up, but much better. Almost picks the nose, but just enough pressure over the back foot. And Carlos has mobility issues. We're working on that too, so that he can like bend down over that back leg. Wave was a closeout, but the drop was a lot nicer. Just can't get into that one. Probably good idea because there were people on the inside. Here I am again, mind surfing. Empty waves. Filmer got that one. And you can see that plenty of surfers are struggling with the same things that Bryce and Carlos are struggling with. The average ability level of any surfer around the world is kind of where these guys are at. This is the last section of this portion of the Sumatra footage. I'll be coming at you soon with another, but this is called Krui Left. This is very close to Amy's place. There's a cool coffee shop called Leafy, and the cheapest ding repair that you have ever seen in your entire life, right by Leafy Coffee. Here's the boys paddling out. Multiple ways to get out there. They're choosing the back way. Bryce, little floater. Floaters were something that we developed while we were on a trip to Costa Rica, and Bryce is finding the tail a lot more. You know, you can imagine at this point we've done some video review, looked at what was going on over the front foot, and now Bryce is driving on that tail. You see, pushing harder with his right foot. He's a regular footer, staying with that whitewater. And again, Bryce is on a larger board than everybody else, so he's able to get more waves. He's not being held back by paddling a short board in small conditions. Here's Jaya. He's riding a fish. He's been surfing his whole life. But this wave was hard. You know, I was watching it and it looked like there were some good ones, and then they would like fizzle out in the channel or break really wide and go out. Here's a really wide one that'd break out to sea. You know, when we were first checking out the surf spots around here, I was thinking, wow, this place is really not good for beginners or intermediates, but I'd say this Krui Left wave is probably, from my limited experience down there, the best beginner wave that I saw. Although still tricky because of the way that it backs off and dumps and, again, goes wide, goes inside. It seems to make some sense when you're watching it from shore, but then you're out in the water and it does not really make that much sense. Jaya milking a small one. And, you know, again, he's a really good surfer, but you can be out of rhythm no matter how good you surf. Carlos, little turn there. Still over his front foot a lot. I did end up paddling out in this session, and Carlos got a ton of waves when I was in the water. Here goes Bryce. Loaded up over that back foot, back to the whitewater. Nice little foot movement there. This wave is just doing it enough for him, and that's because he has the bigger board. If he was on a short board, that would have not been working. Jaya, this one has a bit more of a wall, little cutback. Fish slides out a bit. Gonna slow-mo that cutback for you guys. He's down at the bottom. He's a small wave, so he doesn't do that big of a bottom turn. Just scoots out, pushes through with the back foot, and there's that little fish squirty thing. Maintains control. You don't have to push that hard to do a nice turn. Jaya's got a smooth style. Bryce was the rhythm man in this session. Finding these wide ones, that was a very nice takeoff. Nice round cut back there with the rebound. That's what we like to see. And then that smooth kick out, resolute, waves over. Look at that nice high chest. Single stage pop up. Little check turn here. To be critical, what I've been arguing with Bryce is he didn't need the first check turn. He could have pumped more and done a rounder roundhouse. A lot of times, when you're starting to get better at surfing, you're excited to do turns, but the better thing to do is actually go faster and do one bigger, rounder turn than 2 or 3 little smaller, flickier turns. It's very important to learn to maintain speed at this intermediate stage in your practice. Carlos getting anxious and desperate on the inside. I want to stress, I'm not putting this footage of Carlos in here to in any way make fun of him or take him down, just to show that we all have these really trying sessions and frustrating moments where we're trying to get out of plateaus and things like that. And Carlos, again, just happens to be one of those surfers that catches way more waves when I'm in the water with him. This guy's name is Jamie. He is the ex-husband of Surf with Amiga's owner, Holly Beck. San Diego lifeguard, recently retired. Great style. Carlos on an inside wave, just getting reps. This wave has a beautiful backdrop. You can tell I've changed positions where I'm filming. And that's another tip to filmers, Don't get stuck filming from one spot. You may want to switch it up. Here goes Jamie. Standard little cut back to the whitewater. And Jamie and Jaya represent just that solid everyday surfing. I really think that this is what a lot of intermediates ought to aim for, is to become a surfer like this. Nice, smooth pop-up, calm upper body language, not pushing too hard on that bottom turn because this wave won't allow it. Feeling the fins out with his back foot, opening his shoulders and arms to the whitewater, allowing the whitewater to push him back. And you guys can just go back and look at Jamie's cutback all day. He's not swinging his arms around like a crazed madman. He's using his legs, his back foot's over the tail pad, and this is the kind of surfing, the kind of everyday solid surfing that I think that a lot of people should be aiming at. Not the pros throwing their fins around. Solid cutbacks, solid pumping, getting little tubes, and enjoying beautiful views like this one. I mean, Sumatra is absolutely beautiful. And Bryce, definitely the form surfer in this session. I noted in the intro, I was sick this whole time, and I would pop in and out for short sessions here and there. But yeah, it was definitely a rough trip for me. After this, you're going to see more in the next video. There's going to be more Jenny's footage. This is pretty much the extent of the waves near Krui that we surfed. The wind, this was a rare light wind day. Here goes Carlos picking up a little insider. And just again, over his front foot a little bit too much. Let's look at this one just for you who do this. What you want instead, and what I work on with Carlos, is see how he's over this front foot and his head is leaning forward. You want the hips to go the other way right here. So instead, he's got his chest so far forward and so much pressure on that front foot that if he just had the hips out the other way, more pressure over the back foot, he wouldn't pearl like that. And I'm sure there's people out there that are struggling with the same thing as Carlos. So hips at the lip, everybody. Hips at the lip, arms at your side, be calm. And this is what it looks like when I'm filming, little selfie. And that's how I actually felt though without the sunglasses on. I was crook.